The weather could play a role. Temperatures should be okay, mid-20s, but there's possibility for snow, which could make things a little more interesting. Running back Josh Jacobs says he's up for it.
I like the game just because, cold games, snow games, because defenders don't really want to hit, and it kind of make them make decisions. You got to kind of make a business decision at times, and it's easier for me because I'm going to make you have to make that decision.
Packers bring a defense to the game that's played pretty well of late. They now rank inside the top 10 in yards allowed, rushing yards allowed, and points allowed. Cornerback Carrington Valentine said that they're starting to play towards their potential.
Yeah, that we're trending the right way. As long as we keep keep practicing hard, keep doing what we do, sky's the limit.
Injury-wise, Saints going to go with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, while star running back Alvin Kamara not expected to play. As for the Packers, Quay Walker and Javon Bullard did not practice today due to ankle injuries. Turning to Wisconsin, they've got a new wide receiver. It's Idaho's Mark Hamper. He had nearly 1,000 yards as a freshman and 6 touchdowns. He's the second wide receiver the Badgers have added from the portal.
Actor portrayal.
When I first looked into life insurance, I worried about the hassle. Then I found Better Life. Their simplified issue whole life coverage plans mean no medical exam. I found a plan that fit my budget, and now my final expenses are covered. Plus, I get Better Life member benefits at no extra cost. That's definitely better.
Better Life Insurance, where better means belonging. Call 888-488-4136. Insurance issued by Better Life Insurance Company. Terms and conditions apply. Member benefits are subject to change. Contact a licensed agent for details.
Well, the Bucks back in action tonight as they take on the Cavs in Cleveland. Milwaukee came into the night having won 11 of 13, while the Cavs own the best record in the NBA. And Wisconsin can host Detroit Mercy coming up on Sunday. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil-Prin.
Here he is, your host, Brad Mills.
Thank you. We got a great show. We got a great show. Can't wait to take some of your calls, talk Packers Saints going into the weekend. First, just to catch up on what's been going on, President Donald Trump is at it again. I kid, of course. I think it's so lame how some comedians just need to make the same jokes about Trump. I mean, it's such a crutch, right? Like they need to use the same punching bag to make the same jokes over and over again. I mean, come on, give us something original, right? All right, in all seriousness, Craig Counsell is at it again. I can't help myself. I can't help myself. In huge news out of Madison yesterday, talented cornerback, former 3-star recruit Xavier Lucas announced that he would be entering the transfer portal. And this surprised some folks, including myself, given that he played in 10 games as a freshman, 18 tackles, 1 interception, and a sack in over 200 snaps of work. I mean, Xavier Lucas making a bunch of money for a few futile weeks of work in Madison before heading somewhere warmer. I mean, who does this guy think he is? A member of the Wisconsin State Legislature? It's good work if you can get it. It's great work if you can get it. And lastly, as Christmas approaches, as the holidays get closer, a genuine quick story I'd like to share with you if I could. I ran into a listener at Woodman's the other day, which is always special and humbling. And he told me, "Say, you're the man from the radio." And I said, "Yes, from WOZN, the Zone." And as I reached for a box of pasta, I needed fettuccine. I said, "Oh, so do you listen often? I assume you're a big sports fan." The man goes, "Yeah, I try to listen as much as I can. I like some sports, admittedly, more than others. My favorite time of year to listen is the summer." And I go, "Oh, so you're a baseball fan?" And the man replied, "Not really. I just like when the Brewers take your show off the air." I said, "You son of a..." We got a great show. Yes.
No, it's definitely great vibes in the locker room right now. Take it one week at a time. Keep winning these games and put ourselves in position for the playoffs. But like we're at as a team right now, everybody's enjoying being here and putting in the work during the week.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
It's been a while since we started the Friday show with some jokes. Anything to avoid doing actual work on a Friday. You could look up statistics to preview Packers Saints. You could look further into what's going on with Wisconsin in the transfer portal, or you can stare at an empty Word document and try to write anything to avoid doing actual work today. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Gray Bills. I hope you're having an excellent Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. And I think this weekend feels a little bit, this is an extra zap going into this next week. Maybe you decided Monday off, right, to lengthen your holiday a little bit. Maybe you are taking next Thursday or Friday off. So maybe you're looking at some extended time off possibly next week. So I think that adds some extra juice to getting done with work today. As well. There's a couple things that I want to get to tonight, and we don't have to get to them in any particular order. I figured we'd start with Thursday Night Football. I have a couple of takes on Justin Herbert and Bo Nix. That was a very good game. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk a little bit Packers Saints. We'll talk about that, obviously. I think that'll just kind of happen generically. I also have a bit of college football audio that I want to play for you. Something that I heard, I saw on Twitter more specifically, but it's a piece of audio. It's a report, if you want to call it that, from a radio host down in Atlanta. Guy used to play for the Tide. He played at Alabama, and now he does radio. And some of the stories or some of the reports surrounding the transfer portal and what's going on, even with teams that are in the college football playoff right now, it's just wild. And it makes for interesting discussion, if nothing else. So I want to get to that at some point tonight. But really tonight, I titled the live stream, if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook or watching the stream on Twitter at Wisco Grant, I titled it Free Phones Friday. Very original, right? No other sports radio show has ever done that. You could drive the topics tonight, right? There's nothing that I feel like we really need to nail. Like I need to spend most of the time on this. We can bounce around. We can talk pro, college. There's certainly a full menu of games in both arenas. College football playoff games start tonight. Notre Dame and Indiana. That's going to be really fun. And they'll run through the weekend. So we could talk college. We could talk NFL. And obviously Packers Saints as well. This is the Wisco Sports Show. So I'll get to your phone calls. First segment in just a couple minutes if you're ready. 608-321-1670 if you'd like to join me. I would love to have you, and you can text as well and comment on the live stream. I think Thursday Night Football last night was a very good example of a trend that's become more common in the NFL. I don't know, the last 10 years, the last 8 years. I'd have to go back and look at the year-by-year breakdown, but I think we're seeing now head coaches and organizations finding ways to win with limited quarterbacks more than we've ever seen it before, right? And we talked about this, I think, early on this football season. Maybe it was in the summer. I remember having a take. I don't know if it was about Tua. I don't know if it was about Purdy. I don't know who the take was about. But basically, my point was, we're having quarterbacks lead winning teams now that never would have led winning teams back in the day. It just never would have happened. Back in the day, it felt like maybe there was a Matthew Stafford in any given draft. Maybe there was, obviously an Andrew Luck or an RG3 in any given draft. But now, some of these drafts, right, you're 3 or 4 or even 5 quarterbacks deep in any particular draft. And we're going to see what Michael Penix looks like this weekend. That's exciting. We saw what Bo Nix, who was either the 4th or the 5th quarterback taken, I think the 4th at least, right? It's not like he was even close to the top of his draft at his own position. Those types of players never would have led winning teams, especially early, right? Now, maybe the 5th overall quarterback taken in any given draft would go somewhere and be a backup for a while. They'd have a chance to start. They'd perform well, and maybe they'd approach free agency and some team would bring him in and they'd give a chance to, start for a job. But a Bo Nix type player, or even a player like Jalen Hurts, right? These types of players never would lead winning teams right away the way that they have. But the league has gotten a lot smarter about empowering offensive-minded coaches to be head coaches, because it's like, we can try to figure out the defensive guy year to year. We can try to figure out this. What we can't do is have a new offensive guy every single year with a young quarterback. We can't be putting in a brand new offensive scheme every year. We just can't operate that way. So guys like Nick Sirianni become head coaches, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan would have become a coach in any era simply because of the name and the success that he had experienced as an offensive coordinator. But he was kind of the first. Many have since followed, right? Teams are getting better at taking the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th best quarterback in any given draft, or the second or third option in free agency. Look at what Sam Darnold has been doing with the Vikings, taking that guy and saying, okay, we can build the outfit around that guy. We can put the right talent. We can use the right scheme. Sean Payton, short throws, yards after the catch, talented defense, right? We can make that work with Bo Nix. There's a lot of coaches and quarterbacks that are making it work around the league. Now, in the AFC, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of star power quarterback. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. But in the NFC, right, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are making it work. And there are those guys in the AFC as well. Bo Nix, which as a Broncos fan, it's like, man, I feel like for the first time in a while, we're probably building something that's sturdy. And yet, is it going to matter? Because we got to go up against Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, and we got to go up against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So Denver might be doing a bang-up job. I think they are with the situation and the pieces that they have. But I still don't know if it's going to be enough. But Denver is one team, for example. There's more of these teams in the NFC. I think the Eagles, they're making it work around Jalen Hurts, who's a limited quarterback. We'll see what Atlanta does in terms of making it work around Penix, or maybe he has some star power and some ability to lift guys up. But there are so many teams now compared to 10, certainly 20 years ago. It's like, oh, yeah, you can win with that guy. This coach has shown that they can win with this guy. You can build it around that guy. Bo Nix is one of those guys. I bookmarked a tweet last night that at one point in this game, and this wasn't his final line, but at one point in this game, Bo Nix had 213 passing yards, and 200 of those yards were after the catch. The average depth of target was minuscule, right? And it's not like Denver has some crazy group of downfield receiving threats, right? Not that Bo Nix could hit him. He doesn't have this huge arm. Saw a couple underthrows last night. So Sean Payton, of course, scheming up a type of offense that's going to work for Bo Nix. I think it's better because a lot more teams are competing. But on a night last night, you're like, man, Bo Nix just doesn't stack up. Some of the plays that Justin Herbert made and some of the throws in the biggest moments that Justin Herbert made, it's like, okay, that's why star quarterbacks still have so much power, and that's why they still get paid so much in this league, is because when the smart offensive coach with the thoughtfully constructed roster with the XYZ quarterback from his own draft matches up after winning games with a guy like Justin Herbert, the game's going to still go to Herbert. And I'm glad that it did, because I think Justin Herbert's really good and Harbaugh's a good coach, and I want the Chargers to be a position of strength team in the playoffs. And I kind of would have been a little depressed had they lost at home, albeit with a 50-50 crowd, maybe even more than, maybe it was like 60-40 Broncos fans. Certainly a lot of Broncos fans there, a lot of orange. But I don't want to live in a world in which Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert and that team is losing to Bo Nix at home. Like, that's depressing. So I'm glad that Herbert won. I think the Broncos are doing a real smart thing building their team. The problem is they're in a division with some unbelievable coach-quarterback combos. So it might not matter. But it's more common. It's a trend that we've certainly seen in the NFL, kind of building for years now, where it's like, well, yeah, we don't love Bo Nix. He's the fifth quarterback or the fourth quarterback in a draft, but we can make it work. It's just hard to make it work against a guy like Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. That's kind of the situation in the AFC. All the huge name quarterbacks are in the AFC these days. I said it's a free phone Friday. I'd come to you in the first segment. You can set the agenda. If you want to talk Packers Saints, we can do that. College football, we can do that. Anything else, maybe a take from Thursday Night Football or a bigger picture NFL take, whatever. I'll go there with you. 608-321-1670. Let's take our first call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. It's Grain Man Mike.
Hey, Grain Man. What's going on? Normally a texter. I'm happy to hear your voice.
Yeah, it's first-time caller.
Hell yeah. What do you think?
Well, just wanted to I texted in the Bills show earlier today, and I wanted to talk about the Sean Payton comment at halftime. I don't know if you had heard it.
What did he say? I didn't see it.
So after the free kick, the fair catch free kick, and I'm not a Sean Payton guy.
Yeah.
I really can't stand the guy. But he said they practiced that play in practice.
Okay, that comment. I thought that was from his postgame. He said that going into halftime? I missed that.
Yes.
We practiced that.
Did.
I'd be like, why? With the limited practice time you have, why are you wasting your time on that?
Exactly. A play that happens once every 50 years.
Yeah, it never happens. We practice
You're
it.
wasting your time. And I think it just goes to the arrogance of Sean Payton.
A little bit. I think that's why he turns a lot of people off. And I know Vikings fans don't like him because of Bountygate. And that's more than fair. I think this is kind of a lame thing to think. I think that the AFC and the NFL is a little bit more interesting when the Broncos are a team that's not a doormat for the Chiefs and the Chargers. And Sean Payton is a personality, and if he pisses people off, all right, great. That's good for entertainment value as well. So I'm glad they're in the mix, but I also would have been bummed if Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh lose to Bo Nix last night. I'm like, I'm not sure I want to live in that world, you know?
Yeah, I agree. But I do have to say he's doing a great job with Bo Nix.
Yeah, I think he's doing the best possible job you could do with Bo Nix. Great man, Mike. That's a good call. And I forgot to mention that comment. Sean Payton said, yeah, it's a free kick situation. We practice it. Like, first of all, they don't. Second of all, why? Why would you practice that? These teams don't practice onside kicks very often, and they don't practice Hail Marys very often. Those things decide games. I don't want to say all the time, but a bad onside kick or bad defense on a Hail Mary, just ask a Bears fan, those things can cost you games. And those things are barely practiced because there's such limited practice time. We practice fair kicks. If I was on the beat, I'd be like, why? Why do you practice that? See what he says. You know, he's far from the first coach to lie about something in a presser, but that's kind of a funny thing to lie about. And while it was a very entertaining play, it was still only the difference of 3 points. And the Broncos were leading by 10 or 13 at the time. So the Broncos, it's not like that cost the Broncos the game. It was kind of a fun side note. What took place then later in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, that's ultimately what costed the Broncos the game. 608-321-1670. We'll take one more call and then a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Wisco Chad Grant.
Hey, Chad. Good evening.
Yeah. So we're going to talk head coaches here. Glad you brought up the Sean Payton thing. First and foremost, he probably just said it as a kind of, they practice it. Doesn't mean they practice it every week. They probably practiced it in July.
What are they practicing? Am I misunderstanding? It's just a kickoff that you can't defend. Like, what do you even practice there? You just stand and watch it.
So correct, but they probably practice the general concept of the other team trying to use it against you. So how do you defend it? Like, what are you looking for there? Right? That's what they practice.
I don't know.
That's fine. But I got an interesting take on your take on the fact that we have all these offensive mind coaches. You were way too young to remember the Walsh, coaching tree, or even the Mike Holmgren coaching tree, which was born out of that Walsh coaching tree. All those guys were offensive minded people that were West Coast offense. That's where this whole offense thing started. Granted, the Packers under Favre had good defenses too with, Reggie White. It's just their offenses were prolific back then. And
there were good offenses. That was, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Wisco Chad, because I could be young and dumb and maybe I don't know anything. It seems like offenses nowadays are much more microwavable for young quarterbacks. Back then, it's West Coast, it's timing, it's footwork, it's precision. You couldn't just come into the NFL as a rookie in the 90s, even with one of those high-level offensive coaches, and just perform at a high level. Whereas I think offenses now, and Brady's talked about this, have been dumbed down a little bit to win with quarterbacks that are lesser or quarterbacks that are inexperienced.
Maybe, but remember, Brett Favre didn't even know what a nickel defense was, and he was winning games, right? It wasn't until his second year that Detmer was like, and that's the nickel and the dime. And he's like, what are you talking about, man? There's only 4 and 5 guys on the field, and then they explained it to him. He had no idea. He just was out there slinging it and got some of the general concepts, and he was still playing in a highly evolved West Coast offense. He just made it work for him.
Yeah,
I think that existed. I remember we had the greatest show on turf. Kurt Warner came from bagging groceries to throwing touchdowns. So is it really that inconceivable that it's talent still kind of rises to the top, and there's a coaching component, but
of course.
I don't think it's as paralleled or as differentiated as you think it is between then and now. I think that maybe we see it a little bit more. The entire 365 NFL news cycle helps kind of propagate some of this stuff, but again, I don't think it's as crazy and inconceivable to have a 4th or 5th quarterback in the draft starting.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure. I just felt like even 15 years ago, the league was a lot more have and have not. You got a quarterback, you were a contender. If not, you were a complete and total loser and you had no chance. And I think we've recently found a middle ground. The Broncos, okay, we'll make it work with I keep using these two examples, but Bo Nix and Jalen Hurts, one example from each conference. Two teams have found a way to do it. With two quarterbacks, I contend they wouldn't have found ways to do that with those quarterbacks once upon a time. Not even 20, 30 years ago in the 90s, but I think even like 10 or 12 years ago. And I just think franchises have learned to make do. I think those are winning franchises, right? Like the Broncos don't pick first overall. The Eagles don't pick first overall like the Jags or like the Titans. The Titans probably a bad example, but the Jags have, the Browns have, right? And I respect the teams that don't bottom out and find a way to get a quarterback and make it work anyways. I've rambled. I want to get back to your phone calls. Packers Saints, we'll get into that as well at some point, but I really want to let you guys drive the conversation today. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show continues after this.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Happy Friday. Fins up. Appreciate you being here. It's our last day in studio, and it's going to be our last chance to talk on the phones for well over a week. Next time we'll be back in studio will be next Monday because we're going to be live out and about up in the Eau Claire area. For our Sports Talk 105.1 listeners next week. Be at Kai Chevy Town on Monday in Menominee, the north side of Menominee. We'll be at Princeton Valley Golf on Thursday by the North Crossing in Eau Claire. Come on out, bring friends. And then on Friday back in Menominee, wrapping up the week at Dean and Sue's, the west side, right off 29. So if you want to get your thoughts in, You got to do it tonight, and that's why I have titled tonight's show, it's a Free Phones Friday. You set the discussion. You pick what we want to talk about. I'll fill in the gaps with some other things that I have on my list today as well. Packers, Saints things, some Badgers things. But we've been reacting a little bit to Thursday Night Football as well. A pretty entertaining game, and I'm glad that the Chargers won because I don't want to live in a world and I don't want to watch an NFL in which Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh are losing to Sean Payton and Bo Nix. And that's nothing against Sean Payton and Bo Nix. But if the Chargers with Harbaugh and Herbert can't beat Payton and Nix, it's like, okay, well, then it's like that team doesn't even count because they have talent and now they're well coached. Justin Herbert's awesome. Like, I want to see that team win. I want to see that team get into the playoffs and play meaningful games. Because if not, it's like, well, what are they even there for? Just relegate them or just disband them from the league if they're going to lose to Bo Nix. I know that's a little dramatic, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to live in a world in which Harbaugh and Herbert can't beat clear framed Sean Payton and Bo Nix, who looks kind of like I was going to make a joke. I think that would have been a little strong, but I don't like how he looks. He gives me weird vibes. Looks, I don't know. He just gives me a whatever. Forget I said anything. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Fins up, my friend.
Fins up, Denny. Happy Friday.
Oh, happy Friday to you, sir.
How are things in Holman?
Well, they're just getting ready to have Evo come Monday. I guess they're going to take the. Oh, yeah. You're going to welcome him, with the big ribbon cutting ceremony and everything. He's a celebrity.
Ebo texted me about 2 hours ago. I'm going to read you. This is my favorite text I've gotten forever. He said, out of nowhere, I'm with two people from Cadott. What is the saying about that place? And I replied, Cadott, the city that God forgot. Respectfully.
There you go. I like it. Hey, I loved your show today with Bill. I love Bill in his bunny suit. That guy will do anything for charity.
Yeah, Bill was in a bunny suit here. I'll put the picture on the live stream for those who haven't seen it.
It was very, very cool. So my question for you is, I got a couple of things, okay?
Yep.
You know how Malik did when Love was down and stuff.
Yes.
You understand that. So after the season, are the Packers? Is he going to be like a person that they want to re-sign? Or because I think he's an important part. And also, I wanted to know what you thought about Jair. I mean, he's no good when he's on the bench, and he's been on the bench half his career almost. It feels like.
Last couple of years, it's been basically the last 3 seasons or so. Yeah, it's 50-50.
Yep.
So it's not an
40
exaggeration.
out of 80 games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's two schools of thought with Jair. There's 2 discussions worth having, and Denny, I appreciate it. The here and now, my thought process would be with Jair. I probably wouldn't play him this weekend because you can't beat the Saints without Jair Alexander. You can't beat this version of the Saints at home Monday night without Jair. Okay, well, then you got bigger problems. My goal would be to get him healthy and then some and bring him back against Minnesota, have him on a snap count against Chicago, and hope that gives him some momentum and some energy, and you just hope that he's healthy for a couple playoff games. I think that's the best you can hope for right now. Even if he's healthy through the end of this year, I think then you got to think options going into next year. And I don't want to cut him or trade him just because, okay, well, then what if he's really healthy next year? The options that I would discuss or explore this offseason is, okay, how do we start to build up a cornerback room that isn't reliant on Jair, to be okay? And as a general manager, I would be frustrated having to do that given we're paying Jair all this money, right? It would be like, think of your place of work if you were the boss and you're like, hey, we're going to make this guy the top paid guy in the industry. That's how much we like him. And then a couple of years into that contract, it's like, well, we can't depend on this guy. So we're going to have to hire a couple more people to make sure that job gets done. It's like, okay, but wait, we paid all that money to that guy so we didn't have to worry about it. And now we're worrying about it. Yeah. I also contend that you just also have to also always worry about corner. I know I was a little repetitive there. Corner is a position you should just always be adding. You should always be ABA, always be adding to the defensive backfield. They did a good job with safeties this last year, but you can never have too many corners. So just because you pay one corner a lot of money, yeah, that's nice. And I want that guy to be healthy and hold down that position well enough. You should always be feeding that position as well. So I think this year, I wouldn't play him Monday, get him extra healthy, and hope that he can help you maybe steal a game against the Vikings on the road, and then hope that he can give you a playoff run. And then after that, you revisit in the offseason. But I would assume they're going to keep him, hope that he has a healthier season next year, but you also got to add to that room. So you're not like, well, we're kind of here with our hog in our hand because Jair's hurt again. Like, you can't be in that position next year. Not with everything that's on the line for this team and the spot that they're in as a team that can really contend over, this season and hopefully a couple more before they have to retool. And you know how this stuff works. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Fins up from New Jersey, Grant.
Fins up, Big Ron. I saw you interacting on Twitter. I thought we might get a call from you today.
Oh, was I on Twitter today? I don't know.
No, you just liked my the post of the show, and I'm like, oh, it's Friday. I bet we'll hear from Big Ron. It's not like you were tweeting some long thing. I saw you liked a tweet. And I'm like, I bet we'll hear from Big Ron today. It's Friday.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I am a Friday caller. That's the way my schedule works out. So I'm just dodging, drone surveillance out here in Jersey.
Yeah. Has anything new become of that?
No, nothing new. They did someone, I forget what organization, I think the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, made it illegal to fly drones over certain parts of northern New Jersey now.
Okay.
So
I feel like that's their purview. The FAA is probably, they should probably play a role in this some way, somehow. Yeah. It seems like their thing.
I mean, I personally think it's the U.S. government that's just testing out these drones before they send them off.
Why New Jersey? Why pick New Jersey? What is it about your state that makes it a good testing ground for this stuff?
I have no idea. That I can't answer, but I just, they've repeatedly come out and said there's no threat to public safety. It's no big deal. So I think it's just some top secret military operation. And I don't know. Why not Jersey, right?
Well, I suppose if you need people around, if you want to see how people respond to drones, I would test them in New Mexico. That's typically historically where we've tested top secret military things. But
51.
Whatever. Yeah.
So, what do you think, man? I think with Detroit Lions being like so injury, prone right now, I think the Packers are the number 2 team in the NFC after the Eagles. What do you think about that?
I think you would probably get a lot of people who try to make that argument. The line, you're a gambler, Big Ron, so you know all about this. I was making picks with Bill earlier today, and it jumped out to me that the Lions are in Chicago this week. And unless something has changed, and I'll pull it up here now, this is ESPN Bet. I was looking at FanDuel earlier, but the line of this game is 6.5. I think that's
what's the over-under.
The over-under is 47.5. So I think these numbers are telling us that Vegas is like, the Lions are banged up. I think these numbers would be bigger if the Lions were healthier. I think we're actually seeing the Lions' injuries and their weaknesses like manifesting in these gambling lines. I think the Lions will still win, and I probably still think they're covered, but we're not that removed from the Lions going on the road and beating teams like the Bears by 30. You know what I mean? Like 6.5 is a small number. I think that's injury related, right?
I know exactly what you mean, and I hammered the over in that game because Detroit has no defense. I think even the inept Chicago offense can score on them, and Detroit has a very potent offense. So I think the over is going to hit in that game. I've been betting the Lions overs the last couple of weeks, and they've been hitting. They certainly hit, in that massive game last week.
Yeah.
And then tonight, my betting pick is take Notre Dame minus 6.5, buy a half point if you have to. The line's been fluctuating from 6.5 to 7.5. I think Indiana will give them a good fight, but I think at the end of the day, Notre Dame's, 5-star talent will win out.
I hope Notre Dame
they'll
absolutely I hope Notre Dame blasts them. I hope Notre Dame obliterates Indiana.
Really? What do you have against Indiana?
I don't know. I've had enough of Cignetti. You just just calm down. Who'd they beat? And I know that this is just the cliche class. Well, who have they beat? Who's on their schedule? They had a great season. They won a ton of games. It's like, man, I don't know. I would just like to see Notre Dame stuff it in their face.
Notre Dame hasn't really beaten anyone either. Their best winner, I think, is Texas A&M.
Yeah, but that's a program that's won before. And God's on their side. So there's also that. You know what I mean? Like
touchdown Jesus.
Yeah. As a Catholic boy. So I'm pulling for it. And have a great weekend, Big Ron. I'm going to listen to some Buffett just for you. It's a personal, completely selfish thing. I just don't like the vibe that I get from Cignetti in Indiana. That's me. I'm not telling you that there's any rational reason for you to cheer for one team or another. That's 100% my personal taste. I'm going to get to, there's a caller on hold, so hang out there. Give me 60 seconds. Big Ron and I were talking about the gambling line for Chicago. They're hosting Detroit. 6.5, that seems like a small number. It's a big number, but it's not as big of a number as you'd expect for a team like Detroit that's covered huge numbers and put up huge totals against a team like Chicago. They're just helpless. I mean, they are absolutely helpless. So I think 6.5, that's showing, yeah, Lions are banged up. We expect this game to be a little closer. I picked the Lions to cover 6.5, and I think that they will. Another interesting gambling line, because Bill and I made our picks. The Atlanta game, the Giants at the Falcons. The Giants, but a week ago, were, what were they? 17, 16-point underdogs? I don't even remember. Well, I guess I have it right in front of me here. I can scroll by. They're 16.5. I'm looking at my week-by-week gambling breakdown, the picks that Bill and I made. Baltimore at the Giants. The Giants were 16.5-point underdogs to the Ravens last weekend. Now, the Ravens are the type of team to cover a big number or score a lot of points and beat an out-of-conference opponent. Giants-Falcons is a little different, but I think that number 8.5, if you think Penix is anything, then you should be taking Atlanta. I think 8.5, if there was a quarterback that's a known commodity, so take Kirk out of it. If the Falcons quarterback was, I guess, I don't know. It's going to be difficult for me to think of a good example. Not a great quarterback, but a quarterback that we've watched play before. You know what I mean? Some type of known commodity. That number would be bigger. To me, that 8.5 is, we don't know on Michael Penix. So if you think Michael Penix is great, I'm no gambling expert, but the Falcons are at home playing probably the worst team in football. Like 8.5 is not a large number if you think Penix is very good. If you're worried about Penix or you don't think he's great, well, then that number kind of feels right. I don't think the Falcons are amazing, but they're better than the Giants. And some of these games, these picks, Bill and I are both over 50%. We're hovering at about 52% on the year. Half of my picks are made under the premises, well, this team has good players and the other team really doesn't. Like, the Falcons aren't some super team, but they have good players scattered around the roster. The Giants are like, I don't know. They had a running back who we were kind of excited about for a bit. That's it. So if you think Penix is great, I think there's value in the 8.5. I'm not a gambling expert, but that's just something that I marked down going through these games earlier today. 608-321-1670. Let's take one more call before break. Let's go Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant Piano Man House, Fins Up.
Hey, Fins Up. How you doing, Ryan?
Fantastic. I'm headed over to Cat Daddy's in Trempealeau to perform a solo set tonight, 7 to 10.
Hell yeah.
And just got some pre-Christmas work to take care of course. I was listening a bit ago. I just wanted to see if we could try to cool it on the Jair. I'm not going to say it's hate. The only thing that's guaranteed in this league is people getting injured.
Yep.
Just because we paid him a big contract and now he's been injured for it was the last 2 seasons, not 3, 2.
Well, the injuries or the contract?
The injuries. I want people to make sure they understand. It's been 2 seasons that he's had injury problems that have caused him to miss near half or around half the time. I don't want, let's stay in reality and not turn this into some David Bakhtiari has never been healthy his entire career take just because he had a freak injury. True. And that contract we gave him ended up being basically worthless. But
so I don't know the timetable. I just pulled it up. As of 2 games ago, he has missed 16 of the no. He has missed 30 of their last 64, which against the Seahawks would have became 31 of their last 65. I don't know the timetable, but for an extended period of time, it's 50% of the games. And by the way, Ryan, I'm not saying they should cut him because there's no benefit there. I'm not I think a lot of Packers fans want blood. They're like, we got to get this guy out of here. I want him to play, and I'm frustrated that he's not playing. But getting rid of him for nothing, and if you're cutting him, you're still paying him money. It doesn't really save you much money. That doesn't benefit anyone. So I get where you're coming from here. That the hate, that I'm not trying to hate, but also I don't know that you can go into next year relying on the idea of him being healthy to kind of build your secondary around. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah. I'm not saying you were hating on him or anyone in particular is hating, but there are some narratives that are starting to stretch a little bit beyond reality. But yeah, like you said, over the last 64 games, he's missed almost half of them. That is concerning. He needs to get healthy, but yeah, it's never going to occur to management to cut a guy like him without they're going to, if he's going to eventually not be a Packer, it'll be because he gets traded. I mean, that should be pretty obvious.
Yeah. Cutting, this is, fans. Fan is short for fanatic, Ryan. You know this. Like, if we're frustrated with a player, and we see this with Christian Watson, he has that drop against the Niners. Get this bum off my team. Cut him. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I know the drop isn't great, but like, think about what you're saying. What benefit is there to cutting a player like that? You know what I mean? And Jair's much of the same. If you could save $60 million, Ryan, okay, well, then we could talk about it. But they can't. You know what I mean? I would rather have him here and hope that he has a healthy season while also adding some corners around him. That's a way better outlook going into next year.
Right. And of course, hindsight's 2020. All the Cooper DeJean people are going to be screaming until the end of time. And I'm not going to sit here and say I was one of them, but it certainly would have been nice. You can't help but see a guy like that's athletic ability and upside and versatility that he had. And I think the fact that most clubs probably had him evaluated as a slot corner maybe why he fell all the way to 40. And had he lasted one pick longer, I bet Goody would have taken him at 41. But then he didn't, so then he traded down and still wound up with a budding star in Edgerrin Cooper. Not to go too much into draft retrospect, but
draft retrospect is what builds sports talk radio, Ryan. If we can't bitch about how they didn't take TJ Watt, then what am I even doing here with this job? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. we don't talk about that.
Yeah,
we don't talk about that. I almost broke a TV because of that.
Yeah, that one, I'm going to think about that for a long time. I got to run, Ryan. I'm up against a break. We'll chat soon, I'm sure. And I know we'll chat about drafts for a long time because that's your thing. I know you love the draft, but I think so the narratives about Jair, everyone always uses the word narratives. He's missed 30 of the last 60 games. Whether that's over 2 years or 3 years, that's non-tenable. That's not going to work. So you got to add around him. You got to build up the corner room. Cutting him doesn't make sense, right? And fans are always going to, suggest things like that. But I think their best course now is try to get him as healthy as possible for the playoffs. Hope you get a good run with him, and then try to construct a plan of how best to use him and manage that contract and make sure the back end of your defense has some good players on it. And that's a thing to be done in the offseason, obviously, because here in the third weekend of December, it's not like the Packers can draft players or trade for players or pick up players to make a difference right now. I'm a little bit late for a break, so let's do it. We'll come back. We'll continue the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
PJ, how just tough is this season?
Not tough at all. I'm lying, but it's been tough, frustrating. Definitely with this losing streak, but it's football. Some team got to win, and it hasn't been us. Yeah, we need to figure it out. Maybe not this year, but at the beginning of next year, we definitely need to figure it out before we play a real game.
The off season, I mean, it has to be something you guys are already thinking about in terms of get it right. And what kind of ideas do you have when you think about the off season already and training camp and making it better?
What I'm thinking about? Vacation.
To clear your mind of all this?
There you go. Yeah. Let them do all the work and then, just come back and ready to go.
CJ Moore. I just have a lot of random audio tonight, clips from certain players and certain things. That's one that I recorded actually for yesterday. And I played it on Bill's show earlier today, but never got to it last night. I'm constantly caught between, well, to be fair to that player, that's very honest and not unfair at all. I'm caught between that and also, man, you can't say that. You know what I mean? The comment at the beginning of that back and forth was pretty funny when the reporter was like, how challenging has this year been for you? He says, well, not challenging at all. Nah, I'm kidding. It's been rough. I think that's fair. That's funny. But then at the end to say, okay, with this offseason, what are you thinking about? And have him say vacation, let them figure things out and then I'll come back and be ready to go. Like, it's honest. It's not his job to fix the roster or hire the coaches. But I don't know. Like, I would rather have my highly paid star receiver say something like, well, I'm excited to work with Caleb this offseason and work with all these guys to make sure we're ready to hit the ground running week 1 next year in a way that we weren't this year. Okay. Are we nitpicking now? Should I expect all of my athletes to say things like that? I don't know. I'm constantly caught between wanting to give players the benefit of the doubt and like, you make all this money. Be a mouthpiece for the team, be a proper representative for the team. I don't know. 608-321-1670. It's a Free Phones Friday. So you can drive the conversation. You can pick the topic if you have something you want to hit. A couple of texts here. Going back to a text that came in at the very end of Bill's show. Brett in Eau Claire says, if Grant shows up to do a show at Princeton Valley on the 26th, I will give him a cash donation for your charity. Brett, what do you mean if I show up to do my show? I need to show up to do the show. It only happens if I'm there. We're telling people to come. We have signs hanging up. I am going to be there. Aaron in Eau Claire says, me, my daughter, and her boyfriend are coming, possibly my parents as well. Now, interesting, Aaron. Bringing the girlfriend's or the daughter's boyfriend to a live radio show, a real test of his mettle. He's got to endure my nonsense for 2 hours. Jared in DeForest says, I think the drones are looking for aliens or for the Jersey Devil. I don't know. Maybe they're just flying a bunch of drones and testing them out. But why in New Jersey then? That's what I don't get. It's a very populated area. A lot of people in New Jersey. Why not test them in New Mexico? Unless the test isn't, we want to see if these drones work. Maybe the test is we want to see how people react to these drones. We want to see, I don't know, how they operate in densely packed area. I don't know. I also just don't have that much mental energy to be used on things like that. I just don't care that much. Oh, the government has secret drones. Okay, well, add it to the list of things they probably don't tell us about. I don't know. I can't let that keep me up at night. I gotta find a way to put food on the table, make my car payments, pay rent. Yesterday I had to put a maintenance request in to get my toilet fixed. Which, by the way, the landlord did it very quickly. Toilet runs like a friggin' Cadillac now. So that was a little win for me yesterday. Also, big weight off my chest. I feel like a yak has been lifted off my chest in that I watched the Survivor finale last night, which I had to go through yesterday, basically not being on the internet because I didn't want to know who won. I was 99% sure I knew who was going to win. And that person who I thought was going to win won. But I wanted to experience it genuinely. And what I realized is, my God, I spent a lot of time on Twitter throughout the day because I didn't go on Twitter once yesterday. I woke up in the morning. Normally I scroll Twitter for 10 minutes. And yesterday morning, I'm like, well, I guess I might as well just get up then if I can't enjoy some internet for a few minutes. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Bill.
Yes?
What's up, buddy? Dry Fly out in Montana.
What's going on, Dry Fly? I was like, I know this voice, but I need a little bit more. What's up, brother? Happy Friday. Fins up, you son of a gun.
That dawned on me this morning, and bear with me. I'm driving through the canyon, a little limited cell service.
Okay.
You have the greatest logo in sports talk history, I'd argue. Is that your actual license plate? Do you have that on the new Chevy from Kai's?
No, because I think there's too many letters. Plus, don't you think that's a little self-indulgent when people have customized license plates with their name or their thing on it?
I don't think.
Watch, he has his own name. Do you have Dry Fly on your license plate?
So, yeah. Have a great night, buddy. Take care.
Take care, Dry Fly. Let's go, Montana. I know Dry Fly's a Vikings fan. I wonder if he thinks, where do we stand on Vikings -3 in Seattle? Bill and I both picked Seattle earlier today, but I think that's because both of us deep down want the Vikings to lose out there. And I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings go out there and just drag a hog all over Seattle again. But I think Seattle's fan base is going to come back with a vengeance after let Packers fans kind of invade their space last weekend. Or maybe not. I don't know. Minnesota -3. Do we think the Vikings fall? I would like to see the Vikings lose. Guys, I'd prefer the Vikings to not go 15-2 this year. I would like them to lose at least one more game. That would make me feel better. We could talk about that. Let's talk about Minnesota-Seattle when we come back. Some thoughts on that game. Reset the show at 5 o'clock. Again, anything that you wanted to discuss is on the table. 608-321-1670. Yes, even my license plate, which I can't remember what numbers or letters, but it's not Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, Free Phones Friday. We have not gone sea to shining sea, but we've gone amber waves of grain to shining sea. Is the sea by New Jersey shining? I feel like the Hudson River, the Atlantic over there, make it kind of dirty. But we've got a caller from New Jersey. We've got a caller from Montana so far tonight. And yes, even Sun Prairie. Chad and Sun Prairie. How could we forget? How could we forget Sun Prairie as well? I know Dryfly, who called us out in Montana. I know he's a Vikings guy. Big Minnesota Wild guy, big hockey guy, because what else is there to do in the winter in Montana? Vikings are favored by 3 in Seattle. How do we feel about that? Bill and I both picked Seattle, but I tell you what, that's just 100%. That's wish casting. That's 100% just wanting the Vikings to lose. Because I will feel better about this end of the season. I'll feel better about the season. Let's say the Packers end the season, what are they, 10-4 right now? So in 3 more games, 13-4. If they go 13-4, my God, that'd be excellent. It would be less excellent if the Vikings go 15-2. Like, can we get the Vikings to lose? 14-3, 14-4. You guys know I'm not good at math. You get my point. I would feel a little bit better if the Vikings could trip up once. I don't know. Feels like they've been due once or twice here, and they just haven't tripped up yet. So I would like to see them. Please and thank you. I'm picking Seattle. I don't know how I feel about that. We can talk more about that game and any other you want to hit, and we can probably get into some Packers Saints thoughts as well. Vagabond John was giving me the business on Bill's stream earlier today, which I did not appreciate because I think he's playing dirty pool and negotiating in bad faith sports takes with some of the things that I've been seeing. So I want to talk about Packers Saints. This is as confident as I felt going into a Packers game. Probably this season. Probably. I think so. I'll rack my brain over this break just to make sure that I'm not missing one. But we can talk Packers Saints and anything you want to discuss next. 608-321-1670.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers are 14.5-point favorites for Monday night's match. Packers play of late. They've scored 30 or more points in 4 straight games. Jordan Love is playing so well. He's thrown 7 touchdowns, no interceptions in that stretch. That garnered high praise from Coach Matt LaFleur.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the best ball he's played. Just when I look at all the little things like I explained the other day in terms of his ability to manipulate the pocket when he's under duress, getting the ball to his checkdowns or whatever it may be, I think he's playing at a really high level.
Only 2 players didn't practice yesterday for the Packers, Quay Walker and Javon Bullard. The Saints, meanwhile, going to start rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler, while veteran running back Alvin Kamara not expected to play due to injury. Kick on Monday is at 7:15. Turning to Wisconsin, they added from the transfer portal this morning in the form of wide receiver Mark Hamper as a freshman at Idaho at 48 catches, 966 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's the second wide receiver they've added from the portal.
Actor portrayal.
When I first looked into life insurance, I worried about the hassle. Then I found Better Life. Their simplified issue whole life coverage plans mean no medical exam. I found a plan that fit my budget, and now my final expenses are covered. Plus, I get Better Life member benefits at no extra cost. That's definitely better.
Better Life Insurance, where better means belonging. Call 888-488-4136. Insurance issued by Better Life Insurance Company. Terms and conditions apply. Member benefits are subject to change. Contact a licensed agent for details.
Well, the Bucks are in Cleveland. It's where they're going to take on the Cavs tonight. They will do so without the services of Damian Lillard. He's got a calf strain. Cavs own the best record in the NBA. Tip tonight is at 6:30. And the Badgers back in action on Sunday as they welcome Detroit Mercy to the Kohl Center. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil-Prin.
Here he is, your host, Fred Mills.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We got a great show. We got a great show. Can't wait to take some of your calls, talk Packers Saints going into the weekend. First, just to catch up on what's been going on, President Donald Trump is at it again. I kid, of course. I think it's so lame how some comedians just need to make the same jokes about Trump. I mean, it's such a crutch, right? Like they need to use the same punching bag to make the same jokes over and over again. I mean, come on, give us something original, right? All right, in all seriousness, Craig Counsell is at it again. I can't help myself. I can't help myself. In huge news out of Madison yesterday, talented cornerback, former 3-star recruit Xavier Lucas announced that he would be entering the transfer portal. And this surprised some folks, including myself, given that he played in 10 games as a freshman, 18 tackles, 1 interception, and a sack in over 200 snaps of work. I mean, Xavier Lucas making a bunch of money for a few futile weeks of work in Madison before heading somewhere warmer. I mean, who does this guy think he is? A member of the Wisconsin State Legislature? It's good work if you can get it. It's great work if you can get it. And lastly, as Christmas approaches, as the holidays get closer, a genuine quick story I'd like to share with you if I could. I ran into a listener at Woodman's the other day, which is always special and humbling. And he told me, "Say, you're the man from the radio." And I said, "Yes, from WOZN, the Zone." And as I reached for a box of pasta, I needed fettuccine. I said, "Oh, so do you listen often? I assume you're a big sports fan." The man goes, "Yeah, I try to listen as much as I can. I like some sports, admittedly, more than others. My favorite time of year to listen is the summer." And I go, "Oh, so you're a baseball fan?" And the man replied, "Not really. I just like when the Brewers take your show off the air." I said, "You son of a..." We got a great show. Yes.
No, it's definitely great vibes in the locker room right now. Take it one week at a time. Keep winning these games and put ourselves in position for the playoffs. Like we're at as a team right now, everybody's enjoying being here and putting in the work during the week.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
back to your phone calls. That's enough nonsense. 6.321. Have any of you want to talk Packers? You want Patrick, more transfer news. The Xavier Lucas transfer. I think it's a bit of a shocking piece of news for me. I understand lots of players. Oh, why are these players going? Lots of players are leaving. It's not like I needed to be taken. It's not like I needed to, pull the wool out over my eyes to realize how college football is currently working. That's not it. It's just this transfer for Wisconsin and for Luke Fickell stings so much is because Xavier Lucas was playing. He was one of the young guys who played early and played well. And I think in the case of the 23 class and classes before and classes after with Luke Fickell, there had been these talented youngsters who've come at youngsters. How old am I? There have been these talented younger players, freshmen who've come in, they haven't played right away, so they leave. Okay. Well, that's one thing. But then to have the guy who blocked those young players from playing also transfers, like, okay, well, now you have nothing. You have nobody left. You have nobody in that room. So I think for that reason, this is a significant transfer. And I mentioned that yesterday. I want to play for you a wild piece of audio, and it's a long clip, so I might break it up. This is from Mike Johnson, who does, I'm reading his Twitter bio, The Morning Shift, 6 to 9 a.m. on 92.9 The Game, which is in Atlanta. So I would imagine talks a lot of Falcons, talks a lot of college football, okay? He's talking about different ways in which players are getting paid, not just to come join new programs, but to stay through the playoff. So listen to this. I might pause it. And sorry, if you're watching on the live stream, this might be difficult for you to hear just because of the way the audio tech works. But it's a radio show first and foremost. So we're gonna listen to this together. This is Mike Johnson, 92.9 The Fan in Atlanta. First of all, love this guy's voice. Can I just jump in and say, I'm going to enjoy these next 2 minutes of his commentary. I like this. This guy is, I'd say, a cool, tall glass of water, but I'd say a short glass of sweet Southern tea. By the way, he's talking about the Alabama athletic director, Greg Byrne, who's probably not having a great time considering Bama missed the playoff. No, hold on. Wait, I think the jump around is still a powerful moment. I think the jump around still really connects, and you can feel the energy when that song takes place at Camp Randall. I don't think we've lost that. I still think that's very clear when you watch. Now it's the opposing team that's feeling it. It's the team. It's not the Badgers that are feeling it. It's the other team that's getting it. But to say there's no energy left from jump around is like no energy from Badgers fans or Badgers players. The opposing team, yes. So that's one thing that we've held on to in this era of transience in college football. Let's let this guy continue. I just like his voice. Well, except for Belichick, he's gone to college telling us that college is actually better. The NFL is, I mean, it's a sham. That NFL thing, who even likes that? Who even watches that? College is where it's at. Just listen to Michael Lombardi. Here's the thing. Here's what I want to talk about. So part of that is timing, right? And that's not necessarily the kid's fault. And I think Jesse brought this up on Bill's show yesterday when he was on in hour number 2 to start the 11 o'clock hour. He's like, look, I understand there's bowl games, the playoffs going on, and these kids are leaving, but this is when the portal opens. It's not like these kids are choosing to leave before the season's over. If they want to find a new home, this is when it has to happen. And it's not the fault of the players. I get that. I think moving forward, just the timing of the transfer portal, let's just talk about the timing for a sec. The NCAA, for whatever power they have left or whatever they're worth, with which I think is close to dick, personally, and I think a lot of people smarter than me would agree and feel the same way. It's like, we got to decide if these kids are professional athletes or if they're college students. Because the timing of the transfer portal right now hinges on getting kids into school for the second semester, getting them into their new program so they can participate in spring ball. Okay. They're getting paid hundreds of thousands or in some cases millions of dollars. Why do we need to keep up the amateurism sham? Like, well, you need to get in for the semester. Really? Like this is just all so stupid. And that's always been part of the fun of college football, is it's stupid. But now it's too stupid. This is too much. This is too much of a mess. And that last kicker, and if you're watching on the live stream and you maybe couldn't hear the commentary, I'll just read you the quote. I heard today from a really reliable source that there is a team in the college football playoff that is actively paying its players to stay throughout the playoff so they will have enough people to practice with. They are in the playoff. Colton Bartholomew wrote at Badger Extra yesterday or the day before. It might have been the day before. It's been a long week. I don't know. But basically talking about how Wisconsin might have been a candidate for a bowl like the Independence Bowl, but they got passed up for lots of reasons. One, the biggest reason being they suck. But I'm sure there were other reasons as well. And some of Colton's writing and messaging ostensibly coming from the program, even if it's not directly from Fickell in a public setting, was, well, how do we even practice? We don't have players to practice. Even if we had a bowl game and we wanted to take advantage of the extra practice time, how are we supposed to do it? No one's here. And when I read that, I was like, come on, really? And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm looking around and actually counting up the players and the 20-ish scholarship players who have departed to the portal. Like, yeah, okay, it would probably be hard to be a functioning, practicing football team right now. Like, this whole thing it's kind of unbelievable what's become of college football. But hey, at least the kids can make some money. All right. The idea was never for the kids to make money. The idea was, hey, the NCAA makes money hand over fist. The players should get a cut, which turned into, okay, the NCAA keeps everything. And also, if you want to get boosters to cut the kids a check in any form or fashion they want at any time, then go nuts, which in hindsight was the most predictable thing ever. This was never going to go properly because the NCAA had to be dragged into this kicking and screaming and they weren't prepared. And this is nothing new. But that today was like, look, it's one thing. You got to re-recruit your own players all the time. It's another, like, you're losing kids and college football fans don't necessarily get to identify with players on the roster for very long. It's another to be in the college football playoff and not be able to field a practice because you're losing so many guys. You're losing all your depth. That's wild. 608-321-1670. We can talk more about this. We don't have to. 2 callers on hold. I'll get to you, I promise, both of you before this break. Wisco Sports Show. Let's go to the first. Who's this?
Eric on 990.
Eric on 990. Good evening.
Good evening, Grant.
Good evening, Eric.
Were you happy with the outcome of Survivor?
Yes, I was. Very pleased. She deserved to win. You know, there's something so unbelievable about winning an immunity challenge when you know you need to win it or get a, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to win an immunity challenge early on in the game, and you can relax at tribal council. It's another to know that if I don't win this necklace, I'm going home, and to win it in that, like, and she did that a couple times towards the end. I mean, that's how it came down to her and Genevieve. And Genevieve, I think Genevieve probably would have won if she would have made it to the final, to the final night. But yes, very pleased. I thought Sam played a fine game, and so did Sue, but I don't think their games even came close to stacking up with what Rachel did.
Well, Sam shouldn't win because you have to win at least one immunity challenge.
Well, that's the thing.
Reward.
Sam is like, well, I was always on the bottom. And I'm like, okay, that's nice. But there were moments where Rachel was on the bottom too, and she was able to pull herself out of the bottom. He's like, well, I got my name written down more than anyone else. It's like, well, when you win 44 immunity challenges, no one can vote for you. You know what I mean? Which I thought, we were saying last night on the couch, it's like, that's what Rachel should have said. That should have been her rebuttal, is like, yeah, I didn't get voted for as much because I kept winning challenges. Which isn't a stroke of luck, by the way. And I feel like that's how they tried to, well, you relied on immunity. It's like, we didn't rely, you earn immunity. You don't just find it, unless you find an idol, which she also did, but that's separate.
Right. So I thought it was a good season.
That was a great
season. Did you hear him? He admitted it.
Yeah.
24 years.
Yeah, that's all you wanted to hear. 47 seasons, but 24 years. You try to pass it off as 47 years. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, right. I mean, I didn't start watching this when I was 12. All right.
No, that's not how that works.
So, not how it works. But, and Vikings.
Do you think, I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question. Do you think your Vikings are going to go to Seattle and win?
I think they can.
Agreed.
I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop too, right?
Well, it's not even like the Vikings aren't really that good. It's that it's really hard to win NFL games. And they've won how many have they won in a row now? Like,
a lot.
Like 8. Yeah, it's just at some point you're going to have a couple strokes of bad luck. I don't know if they go out to Seattle and lose. I don't think I'll think any less of them. Some people will try to hold it against them. I really won't. I just think they're, in some respects, due for a loss. And I don't think that's any bit of commentary on how good they are or aren't.
What about the Vikings running game? We may have a running game. O'Connell's just not a running coach. He just doesn't do it.
No, he likes to rip it, man.
And he might be just conditioning these guys, because I really think you can run the ball in this day and age. You can run the ball to a championship, but you're not going to run the ball to win a championship.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Would you agree?
I think so.
Sooner or later, you gotta, because you're going to come up to somebody good, and you're going to have to keep up.
Yeah. Which the Vikings totally can. I mean, their weaponry is insane, and their quarterback can just huck it downfield with the best of them.
But something about that is the Chiefs have not achieved a high-scoring game this year yet. I don't think they broke 30.
No, and I don't know. I'll have to go look. I think to win a championship, your defense needs to be good enough. Your passing game needs to be good enough. Your running game needs to be good enough. And you need to be strong enough in every single spot to maintain. So, like, I'm not saying anything new here, but you're saying you can run to a championship, but you can't win a championship. There's games where you're going to have to slow it down and win in a lower scoring game and execute on long drives. And then there's games where you're going to have to hit a couple home runs. I think the Vikings are capable of doing both of those things. Who's the secondary back behind Jones, and how do you feel about them?
Chandler, and I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed.
Just a guy?
No. He's just a guy. And Aaron Jones is a really good running back.
He's really good.
You've seen that this year.
Yeah. He's a really good player. Seen for a long time.
Grant, you have a Merry Christmas.
You as well.
As always, it's been a pleasure talking to you this year.
You as
well. And,
yeah. Another year in review, bud. Eric. Yeah, have a good one. Have a good weekend and a Merry Christmas. Pleasure to talk Survivor and the Vikings. Yeah, the Chiefs scored 30 in overtime to beat Tampa Bay. They scored 30 to beat Carolina at the buzzer. And that's it. Now, they've scored 27 and 26 and 28 a couple of times, but they're not scoring 35 like the Bills have been. I think the Bills, by the way, maybe my favorite pick of the week. Bill and I were doing picks earlier. The Bills to cover, I think it was 14.5 where we picked it today. 14.5. No, Packers are favored by 14.5. Why can't I find the Galding. Yeah, 14.5. Buffalo favored by 14.5. I think they're winning by 30. I think the Bills are going to paste the Patriots this weekend. 608-321-1670. One more call, then we're going to take a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant Bills. Last day broadcasting in Madison this year. Is this it?
Well, I'll be back the 30th and the 31st. I'm taking New Year's Day off the Wednesday, but I'll be back on the 30th, 31st. But I'll be out of studio all next week, so we won't get to chat for a while, unless you want to drive up to Eau Claire and attend a live broadcast.
There's a non-zero chance, right? I'm moving to the Twin Cities. We're going to be traveling from Hurley to Minneapolis, and we might skedaddle on our way around that area during that time frame. So you never know. Might pop up at one of those bars. Excited to see Grant's show on the road.
I got to drive to Minneapolis tonight after the show, and that is that's going to suck and blow. I'll just say it. That's gonna suck. But I'm glad it snowed yesterday and not today, because doing that drive in the snow would really suck and blow.
I know you got the drive. Otherwise, I was going to tell you got to come by for the first annual college football holiday party. We got 14 pounds of brisket in the oven right now. We're doing brisket nachos. We're doing charcuterie boards, right? We're getting the whole thing going. So,
are you cheering for Notre Dame or Indiana tonight?
Indiana, absolutely, right? I've kind of been out on the way Wisconsin's handled the last couple of years, and even more so than the actual team and the people involved in making the decisions. I've been so out on how the Badgers beat has covered it, how these podcasters have been just
how so,
giving us eternal hope for everything. The biggest thing I have today is when Luke Fickell came in, we're thinking, yeah, it is literally today. The biggest thing that came across my desk today. Luke Fickell comes in, we're talking about Sauce Gardner, we're talking about all these NFL pros. What nobody's really talked about is how few position coaches made the trip with Fickell to Madison. And I was kind of thinking about that, right? We have Paul Haynes, and you were just talking about a bowl game. First of all, right, if you got 120 players involved in the program and 20 of them are in the transfer portal and you can't field a team, we got to talk about roster sizes in college football. That might be a whole separate conversation. But we're talking about these guys going to Toledo and Amari Snowden, right? I mean, he's commenting, he's getting into it with fans on Twitter who are clamoring for this Toledo defensive backs coach. And I kind of dig into it, right? I get a little thread and I'm digging into it online. Why the hell didn't this guy follow Luke Fickell to Wisconsin, right? If they built such a special thing in Cincinnati, if that's what we were hanging our head on, that's what we were told every single day. You hop onto a daily Badger podcast and you're listening.
Man, I wonder which podcast you're referencing every day, huh? I wonder who does that.
Well, it might have been in that Discord that I was really going after people earlier today. But why aren't we talking about how few of this guy's staff made it to Madison? Why did they all kind of scatter and go their own ways? Why is this guy in Toledo when he developed the best NFL talent, specific position players, when it seems like position coaches, they're either a revolving door or, the entire room transfers because they hate the guy, right? So I don't really understand, when you're thinking about what's going wrong with Wisconsin football, you're thinking about these transfer portals, we can't keep anybody, we can't field the team. And then you got, really the position coaches are what make college football, right? I mean, these are the guys who are working with these guys every single day. They're the ones developing the NFL talent. Did Luke Fickell just slap his brand on the whole thing and try to get us up to Madison, but he didn't bring any of the nuts and bolts? How are we 2 years in and this isn't something that anybody's talking about?
Are you insisting or implying or inferring, I actually don't know which word, are you suggesting, Vagabond John, that Luke Fickell didn't want to bring him, that they didn't want to come, or that Wisconsin didn't want to pay him? What are you driving at here?
I'm suggesting that I'm frustrated nobody's asked those questions.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that if all the nuts and bolts, if all the little pieces of that Cincinnati program, all the reason that got him to a playoff and everything that we're supposed to be hyped up about paying this guy $8 million a year, if he couldn't get the position coaches to follow him, that's a big red flag that maybe we should have seen from the start, that maybe speaks to the program, to the character, to the relationships within the program, right? We're struggling with identity. We're struggling with culture. That speaks to me. Cignetti, why am I rooting for Indiana? He not only brought most of his coaching staff, he brought his whole damn roster, right? I mean, half these guys are played in JMU a year ago.
Yep.
Now you talk about what's a good thing about the portal. Their coach got an opportunity, and unlike 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, when a coach ran for more money, this time there's culture, there's identity, and he brought half his damn roster to Indiana, and now they're playing on a nationalized playoff game tonight against Notre Dame. So that's I think it's one of the best stories for the transfer portal. I think it's one of the best stories for college football and culture, and I can't wait to root for the Hoosiers tonight.
I can't wait to root against him, but as I said earlier in the show, Vagabond John, appreciate the call. That's just selfish fan reasons. I just don't like him, and maybe I'll turn the game on tonight and feel differently, but as a card-carrying Catholic myself, I can't imagine that happening. The Luke Fickell questions are interesting, and your commentary there, Vagabond John, reminded me of something that someone said. Now I'm racking my brain. So Phil Longo's fired, right? The firing of Phil Longo, which sounds like such a canon event. The transfer of Xavier Lucas, the firing of Phil Longo. These sounds like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, right? I could see the Wikipedia page. It's kind of funny, and the way that my brain reads these things, the titles of these events, they're canon. When this happened, and I talked to Zach Heilprin about it, or Jesse about it, they questioned Fickell. It's like, would you be hesitant to hire a guy that you've never worked with again? Because he'd never worked with Phil Longo before, and maybe there was some misconfusion about exactly how this was supposed to work. Luke Fickell has not worked with a ton of people. It's not like he's had this decade-plus long career of bouncing from place to place. That's, look at the NFL example. Gerard Mayo. Gerard Mayo didn't bounce around the league forging connections, building relationships, learning. He was with the Patriots. Then he went to work in the private sector somewhere, Optum or something. I was reading about this the other day when I was getting ready to talk about owners and Robert Kraft last night. Then he comes back. He's a position coach, elevated to head coach. And when it comes time to build out a staff, and when it's time for the thing to take shape, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't have the experiences. Luke Fickell not getting the guys from Cincinnati to follow him, let alone failing to pull other guys from around the sport who he's worked with, like that is a real thing, to Vagabond John's point, that probably should be talked about more. I think the Badgers beat is quite good, but I also am not, private parts deep in a Discord chat on a Friday afternoon talking about some of these things. So maybe I'm not the one to direct the beat towards what they should and shouldn't be asking. 3 minutes if you're on hold. Promise. I'll get you right after this break. It's a free Phones Friday. You set the agenda. We'll continue with that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Dad! Brewers fans online are trying to trade Rhys Hoskins again. I won't stand for it. I won't have it. Brew Pack 2 minutes ago tweeting a trade scenario. Milwaukee sends first baseman Rhys Hoskins and $8 million cash to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh sends infielder Su-Che Chang. It's very similar to Sin Su Chu or whatever his name was who played for the Reds. I'm not interested. I want to make this abundantly clear, and I know we're a ways away from baseball, and I know we got to get back to the phone calls, and I will get back to the phone calls very shortly, 608-321-1670. But let me make something abundantly clear. If Rhys Hoskins has no remaining supporters left in the state of Wisconsin, then I am dead. I'm no longer alive. I will jump fully aboard. In fact, I will captain. I will engineer. I will get out on the train tracks and run in front of the engine of the Rhys Hoskins comeback train this year. Bounce back season. Why are we trying to dump him? Why? So we can get some other guy who's not going to perform? I'm all in on Rhys Hoskins. It's fine. 608-321-1670. Now, back to regularly scheduled programming. Free Phones Friday. You set the agenda. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. This is Friday Night Coyote Mike in Colorado.
Ooh, what's going on a Friday night like this, Coyote Mike? How are you?
Well, the coyotes are out there howling somewhere, so I'm out walking the dog. But I just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and yours, Coyote Mike. Are you celebrating the holiday out in Colorado? Do you have any family left back in Wisconsin?
My sister's in La Crosse. Oh, God. My brother, he's down in Phoenix.
Well, both excellent options to spend holidays.
So. Yeah, but anyway, I wanted to wish you Merry Christmas. And Vagabond John, I thought he kind of hit the nail on the head yesterday, like I said, regarding the Badgers
and
the wins and the losses and how the team looks, going into the next year. It makes you wonder why some of these guys who have played, why they're not coming back. And now he made a good point again today is that, why didn't some of these other coaches want to come with Fickle? Did Fickle not want him to come? But he must have, because they were so successful in Cincinnati.
One would think.
There's something going on behind that green curtain,
You think so?
So, yeah, I think so. I don't know how good his people skills are. I mean, he talks well. The few times I've heard him on his presser. Stop.
He says a lot of words. It's a word salad every time.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that he ever says anything super enlightful. Or I'm like, I get it now. Oh, this guy's really got it. He says a lot of words and he repeats himself a lot. And I don't know. It's mostly just white noise.
Yeah, but I see him on, the games that I watch and a few times I see him on the sideline. He is never communicating with any of the players or the coaches. He just stands there, chews his gum, and
doesn't pass the eye test.
Even when they do they have a bad play or a good play. I did see him one time. I don't know if they recovered a fumble in that last game or interception or whatever, and he came off and kind of gave everybody a high five. Not everybody, just a couple guys. But I see guys avoiding him on the sidelines. The players, they'll step back if he walks by them. They step back and out of his way.
There was a moment in the Nebraska game when they fumbled before halftime and then Nebraska made the field goal kick and they panned over and they showed him on the sideline and he kind of he looked like a man on an island, Coyote Mike. And I know it's just an eye test thing and I know it's silly and it's what we see on TV, but it doesn't pass the eye test.
That's what I would text you. I said, what do I know? I'm like 1,200 miles away. So I just see what I see on TV and what I hear on the radio all the time and kind of make my own deductions. So
that's the way to do it.
But anyway, Grant, I want to wish you a happy and Merry Christmas. And I'll be looking forward to listening to you on your show tour.
Yeah, we're going on
next week.
We're out on tour. I'm looking forward to it. Merry Christmas
That's
to
great.
you
I
as well.
think that's fabulous.
I think it'll be fun.
See ya.
Assuming that I can get all of the wires and the microphones to work, and I don't really know what people are expecting. So I've been watching kind of the numbers. And by the way, there's a Facebook event for Thursday and Friday of next week. We're going to be live at Princeton Valley on Thursday, which is just off the North Crossing. So if you're in Chippewa Falls or Lake Hallie, it's like right in the middle. It's right in the middle of the Eau Claire hub. It'll be perfect. And that'll be next Thursday. And then a week from tonight, a week from right now, we'll be at Dean and Sue's on the west side of Menominee. And I'm watching both Facebook events, and I think we're going to get a crowd. Bring friends. Let's pack both places. But now I'm starting to wonder, like, am I going to have to prepare material? Am I going to have to have material to interact with the crowd to make this I don't think I could just do a run-of-the-mill show. So I got a couple days to figure that out. I'll get a notebook out and see what I can scratch down. Some ideas or some ways to. I'm going to bring a second microphone because I want to do. We won't be able to do calls, but if you want to come on and chat about whatever for a couple minutes, I'll have you on. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do those shows. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it is Thomas in La Crosse. How's it going?
I'm doing great, Thomas. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I got a couple things on my mind, Grant. Well, first off, I want to start by talking Thursday Night Football.
Let's do it.
So I got to say, the Chargers are looking really dang good this year, and I am super glad that Jim Harbaugh made the leap to the NFL, and to see the camaraderie and just how much fun he's having with the Chargers. You know, I've seen like some posts by the Chargers social media team.
They're sharp.
Game in the locker room.
They're funny. And Harbaugh, yeah. And the Harbaugh speech was
it's
really good.
Yeah, exactly. And like every after every win they say, or he's a jolly good fellow, or he's a jolly good fellow. You know, that's just awesome. And I just love to see that in a head coach, and just to see just those smiles and everything. They're doing great. So shout out to them. Shout out to my best buddy Bryce, who's a huge Chargers fan too. So he's happy about that win. Next item of business, Grant. I can't tell you how sad I am that Willie Adames has left the Brewers. You know, I told you and the listeners the story of me and Rob going to that Brewers game this past summer.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yeah, Rob Dog and Stoddard. You're our guy.
Exactly. And I'm just sad to see him go, but I will still hold that jersey very, very tight to my heart. I'm not going to do anything with it. Don't worry.
He's a great Brewer, man.
Final order of business. I'll keep this quick before you get the other colors. College football national playoff starts today. I'm super excited for it. Going to be sitting down, watching Indiana Notre Dame from North Bend here in just under 90 minutes, I believe. So I got to know before I hang up here, who do you got winning the college football national championship? Who do you got winning? And Grant, before I go, I want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, good luck with your live shows over this Christmas break, and much love to you, my guy.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Merry Christmas, you and yours, Thomas. Happy holidays next week. I'm sure we'll talk soon. Who do I got winning the college football playoff? It's tough to tell. I think Oregon is far and away the best team, and they proved it this year. They're in a gauntlet of like 8 or 9 straight conference games without a bye. I'm interested to see how people react if Oregon gets upset early. Are people going to be like, well, they didn't get a fair shake with the seeding. Well, they didn't, we're not crowning the true champion. Hey, I'm not the one who wanted to expand the playoff. I thought 4 was just fine. Okay. But no, we want to give more teams a chance. Okay. So it's like March Madness. We're going to have more games and that'll be fun. But are we truly, fairly, accurately crowning the best team? Probably not. Right? So you expand the playoffs to 12, of course. A team that has proven it all year, Oregon, like I don't need to see Oregon win 3 or 4 playoff. I don't need to see them do that. In fact, Ryan Russillo with Todd McShay a week or 2 ago, I saw the clip circulating where I don't know if he went viral, but it was out there where he's like, actually, I'd just be fine watching Oregon and Georgia play for the national title or whatever team it was. I think it was Oregon, Georgia. That's fine. They're the 2 best teams. That's who the BCS would have in there. That's who should ultimately be playing for the title. I would be fine with that. I would be too. That'd be fine. But Notre Dame and Indiana, it's going to be fun. Of course, they could have just ended up in a bowl game against each other, and that would also be fun. I also would have watched that. But I suppose a little bit more on the line. Fine. Like if you're advancing in the playoffs, sure. I don't know. I'm interested to see if Oregon, who I believe is the number 1 team with a bullet, if they get upset and they don't end up winning, depending on how it goes, I'm interested to see how people react, because I think there's going to be some people who it's like, well, they got an unfair shake with the seeding or the way that, hey, I'm not the one who wanted to expand the playoff. I was fine at 4. But we expanded it, which is going to expand opportunity for the best teams to lose earlier. So are we really getting the truest, fairest champion? I think most years we still probably will, but every once in a while we're going to hear where we don't. And people are going to have to be okay with that, because this is the environment that we built. 608-321-1670. We'll continue this next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Couple segments left. Still time to call, though, if you want. 608-321-1670. If you have a take or something you want to discuss, I've labeled today a Free Phones Friday. Cody in Menominee says, hey, Grant, as always, I love your show. We're going to try to see you out at Dean and Sue's next week, unless I'm in the shack on Tainer. Merry Christmas. Well, north end of Tainer, I hope. The upper. I've tried to fish lower Tainer for you. There's nothing down there. I don't know if the fish will go to sleep in the winter or what. Well, if you fish out in front of Clyce, you can get some perch. Okay, yeah, I can sit out there for 6 hours and catch 3 perch. I suppose I could do that if I want, if I try really hard. Upper Tainer, fish out in front of Elk Point sometimes. It's about to be. Chris Inacio says, too bad you couldn't give out free stuff and have people spin a wheel to see what they win on air. I mean, we could maybe, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know what to do with these live shows next week. We have to come up with some special content, special topics to play to a live audience, although I don't have anything to give away. Maybe we come up with like free drinks or something. I don't know. Get there early to Princeton Valley and Dean and Sue's and see if they want to do anything special. I'm going to get a fish fry. Whatever you guys want to do, you're on your own. I'm going to get a fish fry, and I'm going to try to drink some Liney's Light or Liney's Heavy while we still can before they take that away from us in the Chippewa Valley. You can only get it around Milwaukee. Thank God you can get it around Milwaukee because I can buy it. But you used to be able to buy that stuff up in Menominee, Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls. But now that it's not brewed up there anymore, they're outside of the radius. I feel like we're not going to be able to get it. So hopefully they got a batch or two. I saw that I saw a video that got posted, the last batch at Liney's. I don't know if that was true or not. It could just be a cool video that somebody posted. For some reason, we're talking about, well, I know for what reason I brought it up. Guys, getting rid of Rhys Hoskins for a bag of balls makes absolutely no sense. That would be silly. And I see on the live stream, Drake says, why would we pay that bum? This is why you can't win a playoff series. We give money to washed bums and let star players walk. What did Willie do for us in the playoffs last year? I think Willie was a great player. I wish he was still on the team. But I wouldn't want to be the team holding that bag in that ballpark. Hey, let's get a fly ball reliant shortstop whose defense is slipping. Give him a bunch of money for a bunch of years and have him play in a ballpark that holds everything. It's not, I wouldn't want to be the team left holding that bag. Now, I wish he was still here. It was a good ballpark for him, but he's got to go make his money. I get it. Those two things aren't necessarily connected. It's like, well, if only we could trade Rhys, then we could sign Adames. No, like Rhys is his own thing. If Rhys has no supporters left in Milwaukee, then I've passed away. I've been killed. I've fell to an illness, something, because I still think he's their best option at first base with a bullet. You want to find your Jake Bauers for next year to fill in. So Rhys doesn't have to play every day. Ideally, someone who can play good defense, as Jake Bauers did. Not that Pat Murphy. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna DH Jake Bauers to play Rhys Hoskins at first base, which never really made much sense to me. But I guess that's secondary. That's not an issue anymore. Jake Bauers has moved on. But we knew Willie was leaving. I'm not doing this song and dance where it's like the Brewers are cheap. Well, if I had the Brewers budget, I also wouldn't be paying Willie Adames that money. And the Brewers have a better ballpark and a better situation to pay Willie. AT&T Park or Oracle, whatever it is out in San Francisco. Like, I wouldn't want to be a fly ball reliant pitcher. That's his profile. It's like you got to hit a lot of fly balls and a lot of home runs. And that is not a ballpark that lends itself to fly balls turning into a lot of home runs. Watch, maybe he'll hit 30 bombs next year, but I would bet against it. And I certainly wouldn't want to be paying for it. Does that make sense, Drake? Thank you for the comment, though. 608-321-1670. Still a couple of minutes to get in. Mike Clemens kind of showed up to Bill's show earlier, and it was pretty excellent. It might be snowing on Monday night in Green Bay at Lambeau. Not really sure yet, but he gave us earlier today a little bit of a compilation cut of all of these Packers talking about whether or not they like playing in the snow. Christian Watson, Josh Jacobs, So here's a compilation of 3 Packers talking about practicing in the snow and getting the opportunity to possibly play a game on Monday in the snow. You're going to hear Watson, Jacobs, and Kingsley Enagbare.
It's fun. Like kids in the snow, like making snow angels and snowmen and stuff like that. So we really didn't practice much. That's all we did today. I never played in the snow though. Never. A little drizzle, or I guess flurry, but nothing like today. A lot of us from the South, so like you can, I guess, cool down, or being from a North team, you can heat up practice, but you really can't make a practice colder. So definitely, I feel like it's something we got an advantage, especially this late in the season for teams, especially coming from the South.
Got to find a way to enjoy it. It's cold. It's tough, but I mean, we're out here playing football for a living, so we got to find a way to enjoy it, and we definitely do. Yeah, when you're standing still for a little bit too long, you thinking in your head, this kind of sucks. But when you're out there playing ball, it's definitely fun. Just don't stand around too long.
Yeah, I had fun today. I had fun at practice today. It was actually my first time ever really just playing or practicing on snow. Literally probably in my life. So it was fun today.
Josh Jacobs talked a little bit more about the opportunity to play in the snow. And it's funny, growing up in Wisconsin, I underestimate how many of these players that are from the South have ever even experienced or seen snow. If they grew up in the South, played college football in the South, why would they have a reason to? Here's Josh Jacobs talking about what he actually likes playing in the cold.
I like the game just because, cold games, snow games, because defenders don't really want to hit, and it kind of make them make decisions. You got to kind of make a business decision at times, and it's easier for me because I'm going to make you have to make that decision.
That's a classic running back approach. That's the classic running back answer is, no, I'm a little bit of a psychopath. And Tucker Kraft would probably give the same answer. Christian Watson gave a wide receiver answer. And, depending on how Monday night goes, we might be having some conversations next week about Kingsley Enagbare is just straight up one of their best guys up front on defense. I feel like he's making more plays every week. And I don't want to say that he's making more plays than Rashawn Gary or others, but he's mixing it up in the run game and doing more than his fair share in the pass rushing game. He's having an awesome season so far. And if he has a big game on Monday night, I think that might be one of our bigger talking points next week when we get back or even after Christmas, on Thursday and Friday at some of the live shows. Again, for our Sports Talk 105.1 audience, come to Dean and Suze on Friday and then Princeton Valley on Thursday. Let's take our final 3-minute break. We'll come back, wrap up the week with a little Jimmy Buffett and any final takes, anything you want to get in, still time. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Not only going out to Wisconsin and the great Midwest, we're going around the world tonight, Parrot Head.
Last couple minutes of the Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate all the calls, the interaction, the engagement tonight. I feed off of it. It's going to be fun to feed off of it in person next week with a couple of live shows. The events are on the Facebook page, the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills. Let's take one final call. I opened the door, so let's see who it is. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how we doing, sir?
Ridge Runner Mark. It's excellent. It's been a little while. Take us home. What do you got?
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
This is something to marinate on. You were talking about Enigbari, and then if he has a really good game, do we talk about him being better than Rashad Gary and all that? That sort of interesting little meaty debate. So here's my question. And you can look at wide receivers, position areas.
Okay.
Would you rather have one A-plus guy on the defensive line that brings your B and C guys up a little bit but makes most of the dominant plays? Would you rather have a bunch of B or A-minus guys that are probably very similar level, but they're bringing everybody else up, and you have, somebody makes a big play every week, like different person every week kind of builds on the momentum, and they play off of each other and they build each other up, where you have more of a team focus rather than you're focused on one guy. I look at Aaron Rodgers and how he focused on Davante Adams. As generational talents as they were, that was a liability at the end because he tried to shove it down to that wide receiver to the detriment of the rest of the team and making the right play. He only wanted to make that play. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's plenty of truth in that. So let's start in Ridge Runner Mark. I gotta go. I appreciate it. This is a good topic. Maybe one we revisit depending on how Enigbari plays. And I'm not saying that he's like on the fringe of being better than Gary. He makes more plays than Gary. It seems like he's in the mix or mixing it up in the run game a lot more than Gary. Just eye test. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I think having a bona fide superstar pass rusher, that was my first answer. I'd rather have the bona fide superstar guy and a bunch of guys than a bunch of guys who are just solid. Wide receiver, I think I would take a bunch of guys who are just solid. And on the Davante Adams thing, I'm not saying that Rodgers didn't force the ball to Davante sometimes. I don't think it was as big of a problem as we now say. Like, Davante Adams dropped a touchdown in that Bucs game. He had it in his hands in the game to go to the Super Bowl, and he dropped it in 2020, 2021. I don't know that there were a ton of times where it's like, man, player XYZ is so wide open. Why didn't Rodgers go there? I think he threw to Adams a lot because Adams was really good. Any problems were like, I think the play style and the offense that Rodgers preferred. Hey, I'll talk to you next week. Sports Talk 105.1 listeners, go to the Facebook page, Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills. The events are up. I hope to see you around next week.
What can we say? Thank you all very much. You sure make a boy from Mississippi feel right at home in Wisconsin. Thank you all.